Recording in progress.
Okay, it looks like everyone's.
Okay, I'll get us started. Hello, everyone. I'm Jean Cook, Chair of the Mississippi Charter School Authorizer Board. This regularly scheduled meeting of the MCSAB is being held today, Monday, March 13th, 2023 at 1 p.m. via Zoom teleconference means pursuant to Mississippi Code annotated 25415. The notice of this meeting, which included the date, time, place, and purpose of the meeting and identified the virtual attendance available to the public, has been posted. An audio recording of the meeting is being made, and minutes of this meeting will be recorded. The meeting is being called to order at 1:02 p.m. on Monday, March 13th, 2023. And we'll move on to the establishment of a quorum. And as I call the names of board members, please state the location of your presence for the meeting. Jean Cook, I'm present in Jackson, Mississippi. Lee Durrett, I believe he's here. Don Hinton, he's not here. Kimberly Remack.
Present in at home in Olive Branch.
Thank you. Candace Robbins.
Present in Clinton, Mississippi.
Thank you. Jennifer Whittier.
Present in Starkville, Mississippi.
Thank you. A quorum is present for conducting a meeting. And I also would like to acknowledge Marcy Scoggins, who's been appointed to the board and I believe is waiting her confirmation to make her an official voting member. So welcome, Marcy. I'll read the mission of the Charter Board. The mission of the Mississippi Charter School Authorizer Board is to authorize high-quality charter schools, particularly schools designed to expand opportunities for underserved students. Now we'll move on to the adoption of the agenda. You've all received it in advance. I will entertain a motion for approval of today's agenda, and please identify yourself for the record.
So moved, Kimberly Remack.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second, Jennifer Whittier.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of the January 30th, 2023 regularly scheduled monthly meeting. And you've all received a copy of the meeting minutes from January 30th. And I will now entertain a motion for approval, and identify yourself for the record.
I make the motion, Jennifer Whittier.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
I second, Candace Robbins.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Now we'll move on to the chair report. I do have a report today. Since we last met, Dr. Comacharya and I had check-in meetings with school leaders from Clarksdale Collegiate, LaFleur Legacy, Midtown, and Republic Schools. We had some great discussions, and we talked about a number of topics. A couple of highlights. We talked about the renewal process and the timeline, the performance framework, and options for school expansion. And we have that as a discussion item on today's agenda. So I'll reserve, further until we get to that in the agenda. Next, move on to the executive director report. Dr. Comacharya.
Hey, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, it's good to see everybody today. I think I'll never figure out how to get everybody on the screen at the same time, but I think welcome everybody and to our guests. So it's good to see you. I wish we were in person, and I'm looking forward to when we can do that again. But I want to just start today by reminding everybody about our commitment to the NACSA core principles of authorizing, and just remembering that we need to maintain our focus on high standards for our schools, and we need to continue to uphold the autonomy for our schools. And then we have an obligation as well to protect the students and the public's interest. So just always a reminder of our commitment to the core principles for authorizing. Also, as always, I want to draw your attention to the newsletters. Those were in your packet. I think you had 2 months this month, since we haven't seen each other since the end of January. And then I wanted to bring your attention to the letters of intent. So letters of intent were due on Friday. Jordan has a spreadsheet I think she's going to share. Yep. And excuse me, we received 6 letters of intent by the deadline on Friday. And then eligibility determinations will go out this Friday. So what we'll do is we'll follow the process that we've always followed in the past. We'll look at the different documents that are due when you submit your letter of intent. All of those documents have to be submitted in order for you to complete and submit a full application. 4 of those you see on the screen are repeat. So Baskerville Squared has applied before. Clarksdale Collegiate has applied before. CoLearn is a new group that we have not heard from, but they did attend the interested applicant webinar that we had. Gifted Prep is also a new applicant. Level Up Learning is actually it says new, that's the operator type, so I don't want you to get confused, but they're a returning applicant for a new school. And then Rehoboth is also a returning applicant from years and years ago. I don't remember if that was the 2015-16 cycle or maybe 16-17, but prior to me coming on board, they did apply for a new school back in that time period. So any questions about the process for the call for quality schools for this year that I can answer right now?
I have a question about the Kemper County location because it says the district rating is a C. So would they be even eligible to apply?
Yes, they actually can. That's a good question, Jean. They have to go through a different process. Actually, if they go into a C district, they would have to work directly with the local school district and have approval from the local school district.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. Okay, next on my list here for my report for the day, annual evaluation. As you know, last month we released an RFP. We released several, and one of those RFPs was to conduct an annual authorizer evaluation of our practices and our policies. And what those do is help us inform our work. So to make sure that we are, in line with national standards and national principles and best practices across the authorizer field. We received several high quality proposals. And so I just felt like we were in a position where we really needed to take a step back and look at those and do our due diligence and compare and analyze each one of those proposals, engage the accountability committee in that work as well. We've done that before, and I feel like that's really important with this particular piece of work. And so I emailed the contractors who had submitted a proposal and let them know that we were going to delay a recommendation until next month, and that will give us a good window of opportunity to review everything that we need to review, looking at not just the proposal, but the budget, and really making sure that the proposals themselves are aligned with our missions and goals too. So questions on that? Anybody? Okay. All right. So just to flag for you that along with my commitment to working with our national leaders in the authorizing space, I'm also really dedicated to working with national funders and supporters of our work. And in particular, I just wanted to flag the Charter School Growth Fund for you. You all received an email from Mr. Ford inviting you to the event 23rd. They, along with a couple of other national funders, are going to do a VIP luncheon. And I just wanted to thank him publicly for his support. He's been a real good thought partner for the past few months, and he and I have met multiple times in person and on Zoom and on the phone, and we'll continue to meet. And so we've set up now a regular cadence of meeting times, and our conversations will be simply around sharing strategies on how we can best communicate and support collectively the work of the schools. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Also, in early February, you should have received a report from the Department of Education on chronic absenteeism. I will periodically send you reports, and I just want to make sure that anytime you get a report like that, that if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, call me, text me, whatever, because I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. those reports can sometimes be heavy and full of a lot of lingo and a lot of education speak. And so anytime I can be of help and assistance in navigating that, I'm happy to. So just reach out to me anytime you have a question. Recently, meetings I've had a lot of meetings since we last talked. I was on the Gallows show back in mid-February, I think the 13th of February. That was a great interview. He's always very kind. He asks gracious questions and he seems really interested in our work. And so it's a great opportunity for us to be able to tell our story and answer questions that the public or he might have about our work. So I always enjoy having an opportunity to interview and talk with him. We have great news from the legislature. I am happy to say that our Educational Enhancement Fund bill passed. So EEF fund passed. And that's great because it's going to impact our school leaders, our school teachers, and ultimately the school children. So this money, for those of you that don't know, is just a little pot of money that goes to individual teachers. It goes through a procurement card and teachers can use those for classroom supplies and funds for their kiddos. So it's a great opportunity. Our teachers had not been eligible for that. And thanks to Pete and Capital Resources and everybody over there that really supported that work, the House was totally on board. The chairman wrote the bill and then the Senate helped to bring it to fruition, get it through, and so on to the governor's desk. So really grateful for that and grateful that the teachers will have access to those funds. It will really help their budgets at the school level as well because they'll be able to offset any monies from their general budget that they've been spending a lot of supply money on. They'll be able to have those extra dollars for their teachers and kids. So I'm really grateful for that. Also grateful for Pete for coordinating meetings. He has coordinated several meetings for us on our budget. He's coordinated meetings with Portia and with Chairman Reed and Senator Park. And so we've been able to go over and talk with them about our budget request for FY24. All of those meetings have gone very, very well. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that all falls out at the end of the session. Jean and I had a great meeting with Dr. Taylor, again, thanks to Pete and Holly this time for coordinating that, but with our new state superintendent. So that was just kind of a meet and greet and had a really good opportunity to visit with him and share stories about education in general and about our work with charter schools. So that was nice. And I had a good meeting with Jennifer Boykin. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Boykin was in Pearl for a long time as special ed director. She now serves at MDE as their special director of special education, I think is the title, executive director maybe. But she and I just had a good meeting, good conversation over a cup of coffee about how we can communicate with our schools clearly, consistently, and comprehensively, so we don't double do. We can, how can we better make our communication and efforts together to support the schools more efficient? So that was a great opportunity to meet with Jennifer. As Jean mentioned, she and I've had school check-ins with governing boards, chairs, and the school leaders, and they have been full of great feedback. Really good ideas from the school leaders and already acting on some of those ideas, actually several of those ideas. So appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate Jean's time in particular, then the governing boards, chairs and school leaders' time as well for taking time out of their day to meet with us. And it's just like a really good time to connect and improve our communication. We have had pre-opening meetings. We've met with SR1 and Instant Impact, and those meetings are ongoing. I will point out that finding a facility is a challenge, and it's still a challenge for both of those schools. So hopefully by the next meeting, they'll have updates for us and we'll have a little more confidence in where those schools are going to open for the fall, because both of them are scheduled to open in the fall. With respect to CSP claims, I will let you know that I've reached out to both of our schools that are recipients of these sub-grant recipients of these funds. Neither of them have submitted a claim yet, but they both have updated GANs. Those are grant award notifications. They both have updated GANs. they can revise their budget and submit claims. But again, neither of those schools have yet to submit a claim. Last week, Jordan and I met with Ambition for our spring check-in. That is separate from the governing board check-ins. This is in addition to, and some of our schools take advantage of that. Some of them don't, and that's okay. It's just another touch point for us to have with the schools so that we can provide general reminders to them and that they can share with us. So it's just a good opportunity to connect with them. We received our draft memo of findings for the annual legislative report. Just a quick reminder that that is a comprehensive report that's due to the legislature annually. It is to include a comparison of our charter school kids with the performance of similar kids in their comparable districts. So academically, ethnically, economically, comparing an apple to apple of the performance over time for those children, and a performance and a snapshot in time too. So that report is forthcoming. On Thursday, this coming Thursday, I have my first meeting with West Ed. As you know, we're working on the indicators of distress. That is an action research group, and all of us have selected a school within our portfolio that we will look at from the time they were approved and look at them over time to where they are now, if they've been through a renewal process, what that looked like, if they got a renewal that was a conditional renewal or a not a conditional renewal. And we're going to look at early warning signs. And the purpose is to help authorizers develop practices, really resources, a variety of different things to help us in our work navigate that and be able to identify early warning signs that an authorizer should be able to know if a school's in trouble. Then how do we respond? How do we help them? Is if it's enrollment or financials, whatever it might be, that's what this work will do. So we'll begin that in earnest on this Thursday. And I think that's it, other than just saying thank you again to Jordan and Amy, who are both totally committed to excellence in this work. And I just couldn't do what I do without them. So just another public thank you to them. I think that's it. If anybody has a question, I'm happy to entertain. Okay.
That was a jam-packed report.
I know it was a lot, and I talked fast. So yeah. So
That's great.
happy to answer any questions anybody might have, though.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. We'll move on to the financial report. Denise?
Well, the financial report is from the period of January 26th through March 6th. We spent $52,063 for agency operations. A little over half of that was for salaries and fringe benefits. And then the majority of the rest of it was for contractual payments. They included payments for capital resources for the legislation and support, basis policy for part of the annual report, Cornerstone for 2 months of fiscal services, Westlaw for the monthly legal research. And then there's a few other minor items such as the monthly ongoing expenses like telephones, the Dropbox, and Microsoft. At this point in the year, 44.45% of the budget has been spent. At this time in the year, you would normally expect to have about 58% if the expenditures were standard amounts every single month. But the general fund expenditures are running higher, and they're at 65.25%, which is expected because we always spend our general funds down before the end of the year. And then on the CSP, expenses are again coming through that grant since the no-cost extension has been approved. We did not charge allowable salary for about 3 months because we weren't sure if we'd get the no-cost extension. So there are expenses showing for 1 month of expenses, but in the next 3 months, we're going to double up what we normally prorate to that grant since we had 3 months that we didn't charge anything. And then there was a contract with the National Association of Charter School Authorizers that we were able to pay with the CSP funds. Originally, we weren't sure if we could pay at CSP or if we had to go to the agency. So we finally were able to pay that with CSP funds, and that was at 74,000. And that's really all I have unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you for the report. All right, so it looks like we don't have any committee reports this month or public comments, so we can move on to our 2 discussion items. So I'll tee these up, and of course, Dr. Karmacharia will help me out here with the details. But the first item, that charter school expansion, I guess we've gotten some information in advance, but this came. We talked extensively about this topic when we had our check-in meeting with Amanda Johnson at Clarksdale Collegiate. And as you know, Clarksdale Collegiate is interested in operating at the high school level as well, and went through the application cycle last year to open a standalone school. And there's a desire to explore the idea of expanding the existing school. And so there currently isn't a process to do that. And we talked through with Ms. Johnson some sort of ideas, and then I've talked to Dr. Karmacharia with some ideas. I know she's done some research, and she's provided us with some options to consider. And again, this is just for us to sort of think it through, and for folks to ask questions, and also add one more thing before we turn it over to Dr. Karmacharia to add in on anything I've left out to get us started, is that my understanding is that the desire there would be some efficiencies gained if this particular school, Clarksdale, and then others who may want to go this route as well, expand rather than open up a separate school. So if an elementary school wants to open up a high school, or a high school wants to open up an elementary school, there would be some benefit to certain schools if they were like one whole K-12, kind of like an attendance center. So they would, because if they open up a new school, they're considered a whole separate local education agency, which is the equivalent of a school district, and all that entails. So I'll pause there and see if Dr. Karmacharia wants to add anything to that setup.
No, Jean, I think you did a great job explaining that. The one thing that I would point out is, one, we need a charter school. We need an expansion process for charter schools. We need that. We do not have that. We have an application process, and we have a renewal process. We have closure process. We don't have expansion, and we need that. Having said that, we need a process that's reliable, that's valid, that's vetted, that is, aligned to the statute, and one that will give you as a board the confidence that you need to approve it. There are many models out there, some aligned to their application process, some are standalone application processes, some are aligned to their amendment process. But and you have some of those options on the information that you've been provided. But I think now is just a good time to talk about what are the pros and cons of any of those options for consideration, and then discuss those. Any questions that you might have to follow up on what Jean's already shared.
So I'll say a little more because I've had the opportunity to think about it more probably than most of you, and talk about it with both Ms. Johnson and Dr. Karmacharia and her staff. I'll just tell you like the questions I had, and that might help spark some questions or ideas that you may have. Is I thought, okay, because we're in this current application cycle that just opened, in the letters of intent were due on Friday, and schools have until May 19th to submit their complete applications, and then they'll go through the evaluation process in June and July, and all the way through the different cycles, not cycles, but stages, and this board will make a final decision on new schools on September 25th. So because I thought, well, is there a way that we could use our existing application and to evaluate whether a school is that wants to expand into high school, from elementary, middle into high school, meets the standard to do that. So that's not what the application is for exactly, but I was hoping there would be some kind of way it could be adapted, or perhaps the application could be submitted as you saw there, Clarksdale Collegiate is intending to submit an application. So that work will be done, or it's being done now. Is there a way to evaluate that for an expansion rather than a new school opening? And Dr. Kamachari, do you want to say what maybe the issues are with that, or why,
Yeah, there are some challenges in using that in particular, and I'll lean on Amy here if she wants to chime in on the legal piece. But primarily, the way the law reads right now, the purpose of the application cycle is for us to, as a board, to review and approve or deny an application for a new school, which is different from expanding. The challenge that you would run into here if we were to use the application process as it is that we would end up any school that wanted to significantly expand, add an elementary or a middle or a high school to their current model, you would end up with that independent LEA, and then you would be in a position where you would have to merge, and the law doesn't have any mechanism in it as it's currently written to allow for a merger. So then you wind up where Jean was saying earlier, you have two LEAs in this case, and then you would have duplicative reporting and overburdensome paperwork and things like that come into play. So it's not a perfect solution to a challenge that's presented itself right now. Other comments or questions?
I do have a question.
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
So the expansion process would be allowing the schools to use the evaluation that they have already established, and just extend that to higher grades or lower grades without going through all the major steps that they would have to otherwise. Would it be an easier process for the schools?
Not technically easier, a different process.
Okay.
So it would be, and I'm just going to put it really in simple kind of layman's terms. So I'm a school leader and I want to expand my school. I have a high school and I want to make sure I'm serving lower elementary kids so that they'll feed into my school, right? So I want to do a little bit of a different model for that reason. And I want to expand down or up, whatever the case may be. But I still need to, one, notify the board, right? I need to be able to tell you, hey, I want to do this. And then I need to have a vetted, approved process for doing so. And that needs to be pretty robust. It needs to be able to, because the board needs to be able to be in a position where they can make a judgment call on whether or not the school should expand. Have they demonstrated success over time? Have they are their kiddos performing well? Are they financially sound? Do they have enrollment issues one way or the other? Are they filled to the brim and they need to expand, or are they struggling with enrollment? There is information that the board would need. So it's not necessarily to make it easier or more difficult. It's just a more focused process for a school to apply for something specific, as opposed to just filling in a piece of paper and saying, hey, we want to expand our school. And then the board having to
Yeah.
make a stakes decision on something that didn't have enough information for you to make a high stakes decision. Does that help, Jennifer?
Okay, so they wouldn't be starting from square one. They would be expanding on what they already have.
To
Is that-
some
is
degree,
that what
yeah.
I'm-
Uh-huh.
Sure.
To some degree, sure. So they may have, and again, it depends on the school and the school's model. But let's say they want to add the high school, then they're expanding to serve grades, but their model's going to look very different because your high school looks very different than an elementary school. So you have to offer
Exactly.
units, you have to offer all those different things that you don't at an elementary school. Teachers have to have different certifications, so forth and so
Sure.
on. So, and different accreditation standards even. So, the goal I think is to have a robust enough application process that gets us to where we need to be for a school who wants to expand and put the board in a position where they're comfortable making a high stakes decision. So is
Okay,
that helpful?
thank you. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Other great questions, other comments or questions?
I would like to add that, and I guess I didn't say this at the outset, this is a process that we're going to need at some point, regardless, because there's, we have schools, elementary schools, and I guess high school that hasn't yet opened, but and middle school. And at some point, many of these schools may want to expand out and serve K-12 or pre-K-12. We just haven't gotten there yet because of the amount of years that we're still young, I guess. So now, we're faced with this one school right now that's ready to do it now, or they're ready to do it last year. So now they're really, really ready to do it. So it's just a matter that part of it is the timeline. So this, I think it's clear that there are processes needed. And then it's just a matter of how, is there a way, like I would like to be able to, I don't know if this is feasible, but if there's a way that there could be, this process could be implemented in a way that Clarksdale would be able to still, maybe still put in their application for this year for a new school, because we don't have a process yet. But if maybe before the final decision is made in September, that school could be eligible for this expansion, this new yet to be determined expansion process. So that, I don't know, it might mean 2 applications or something similar. I'm making this up as I'm saying it. So, if the current application were adapted, but there would still need to be a process.
To piggyback on what Jean is saying here, my recommendation would be for the board to consider allowing for a standalone process separate from renewal, separate from the amendment, separate from the application process, separate from all of those. It will have similar components. It would have to have a notice of it, I want to apply. It would have to have some history on their performance over time. It would have to have some detail around what you plan to do with your new school, with your expanded school, when you're going to serve this grade, how you're going to serve that grade, how you're going to build out to ensure that 1, you're ready from a curriculum standpoint, an instructional standpoint, and 2, financials, and 3, organizational. Do you have the capacity? Do you have the building? So a lot of the questions would be similar to that of an application process, maybe not to the degree, more maybe somewhere between application meets renewal in the middle. And then at the end of the day, the board can make a confident decision, and then a contract amendment would have to happen. So instead of contract showing my grades served as K-8, I would have a contract that says I'm serving grades K-12, and I'm adding these grades through this process. So it's separate from the amendment process, but would result in a contract amendment at the end of the process. So I know that's a lot of things to think about. But we do have the statutory authority to do that. We can go out, we can promulgate rules, we can go through the APA process. I think it would take us anywhere, Amy, chime in, anywhere from 30 to 60 days to get us to a place that 55 to 60 days. I'm looking at my notes now.
Process.
To get us to where we need to be in terms of an approval. But it would take a little time to put it together. If the board wanted to consider it, I think we could have something ready to present to you within the next couple of months. And then could be in a position for it to be active and for schools to use, current schools to use by the fall.
Okay.
So does that mean if what you just described by the fall, that would the applicant have to then sort of start from, I know it doesn't exist yet, so you may not be able to answer this, but do you, with this, what you just proposed, do you, is it possible that if, just using the hypothetical, but it's a real school, so if Clarksdale were continued with their new school application, that they could still get to the end point by the end of September, that we'd be able to evaluate that's the expansion, I guess, rather than, or close to that, I guess.
I don't want to put a time frame on it.
Yeah.
I would say by the fall sometime, and maybe
Okay.
before the new year,
Uh-huh.
that there would be an official policy and practice in place
Yep.
that, and I want to say it's going to be a hybrid of it. You know, you think
Yep.
about what's required in a renewal,
Mhm.
and you think about what's required in an application, the different components for each one could be somewhat of a hybrid
Mhm.
application for a
Mhm.
school to apply for a school expansion.
Okay.
And then it would go through a similar process where, you know, to develop the process, the
Mhm.
APA process would have to take place. And then once approved, a school could apply, and then we would want a third-party evaluator to take a look at it, make an evaluation, recommendation to the board, similar to the others that we do.
Yeah.
But as far as a time, I would hate to say, yes, it would be done by the September board meeting. I
Yeah.
would say yes, before the end of this year.
Okay.
And
So,
so, I mean, I think to answer your question, is there a way for a school like Clarksdale to use some of the work that they've already been doing and have done in this process? And the answer is yes, of course. A
Okay.
lot of what would be required in this process is already captured through the application cycle and her renewal cycle, because she's already did the renewal. So remember, Clarksdale's in the renewal right now.
mhm.
Those are due at the end of the month, back from the evaluators. So then, pending board approval on a renewal, she would have, or Clarksdale would have, a K-8 school. And then the opportunity to apply for a new school
Mhm.
and apply for an extension. So it's not another heavy lift for her to have to recreate the wheel. It's a matter of us putting together a nice policy that's solid, that's reliable, that is in line with best practices and national standards, and the things that an authorizer would want to have confidence in order to make a decision. So does that answer your question?
It does, and I have one other that's, I think, quick. So if a school like Clarksdale applied for a new school and was and approved for a new school, and then parallel or started going through this process, then and was approved for renewal, let's say all good things happened, we have a new renewal process, an expansion process, and a new school process, then Clarksdale could decide we're not going to do the new school, we're going to do the expansion, if they're approved for both, I guess, before the end of the year.
Sure. The board doesn't, they can withdraw at any time in the application. We have school applicants that do that, or applicant teams that do that all the time, and withdraw at some point in the application cycle. or they could go all the way to the end and get approved, I guess, and technically not engage in a new contract or a new charter with the authorizer board and go solely on the new expansion policy and practice.
Candace, Kimberly, do you have any thoughts or questions or on this topic?
Not at the moment. I'm just processing.
It's a lot to think about.
Well, I've been listening to some great discussion here, and I would like for us to consider a standalone process with similar components that would incorporate our current process. So I would challenge us to work on this and present something to help with expansion. But I want to make sure that we have our safeguards in place so that we do have high quality schools offered to the students.
Thank you, Kimberly. That I appreciate those comments and would agree 100%. That would be my, if I were going to make a recommendation. I know this is just a discussion item, but if I were going to make a recommendation, that would be my recommendation, that we do have that standalone policy in place and we go through the entire process the way that we need to, and it yields what we want at the end of the day, keeping in mind that this is not just for one school. And I know the situation is right now central to the Clarksdale situation, but that won't always be the case. We will have other schools that want to expand either upwards or into, you know, a lower elementary. And in the past, that amendment process has worked for a school for a different reason totally. Their school model was approved originally for an elementary, so they were able to use the amendment process to add grades going down. But a different model with a high school is a different type of situation altogether.
Well, I think it's going to be challenging, but I think we've got the best staff to work on this and present something to us very soon.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Well,
Other questions? Anybody else have questions? Amy, do you have anything to add?
You know, I think you've covered it all. You know, we've got, you know, a recommendation. We've got, I think, a solid way forward. It's just getting there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Because it sounds like this is something you've already been thinking about and researching, and I guess you have our temperature now. And
That's right.
Well, great. Okay. Well, thank you for all your already the research you've done and the work that is yet to be done in advance. So, okay. Our other discussion item is a visit to Delta schools. Amanda's invited us many times. She's got a standing invitation, and we did a survey to try to find a time when everybody has dates so they could visit not only Clarksdale but LaFleur while we're in the neighborhood. And we can't find a date this spring. So, what are your thoughts, board members, about revisiting this for the fall and starting earlier with our planning and trying to find a date in the fall where we could, as many of us as possible, visit the Delta and visit the schools there.
How many board members are you trying to make sure is present for the visit? Does it have to be, is there a particular number?
I don't think we're looking for a particular number, but in that our availability dates, I think we were just all split on, is that right? On like, there was, I don't know if you had it, I don't know what the exact number was per day of the dates you threw out for us. But I would say we have, almost 7 board members. So, I mean, I'd say at least half is kind of what I'd be looking for.
Yeah,
That's
I
just
think
I think
that's fair, Candace. We have had we have had visits to schools. You know, you were, I think you were even before you were maybe confirmed, before your official meeting, you were able to tour Midtown with us. And so I think it's fair to say that we would want at least half to coordinate a visit, especially a visit out of town like that. It'd be really nice if everybody could go. And we can always, you know, think about considering having a board meeting and scheduling a board meeting around that time. When I know when I was principal, the board used to meet at our schools once a year. And so it was a nice time for school leaders to show off their schools and for board members to see the children and talk to teachers and all of those things. So it just might be something to consider for the fall, because it was really difficult. And this is a time of year when obviously we're spring break this week for most of our schools. And then we've got testing in the spring. So you've got not just state assessments, you've also got the assessments that are internal benchmark assessments that our schools are doing. So there's a lot going on in the springtime, and it makes it kind of tricky for everybody to get together. So maybe the fall would be better, maybe a better position to do that.
Yeah, that's just what I was thinking. It's not only our schedules that we're working around those state testing schedules, and that gets kind of sticky.
Yeah, so I can put together another survey and throw out some dates for the fall if everybody's comfortable with that and would prefer that. I just wanted to circle back to it, since we'd had several different conversations about school visits and as well as some standing invitations.
Is the March 23rd visit still on the calendar?
Yes, and that is, although that's an opportunity to visit our schools, that is not something that we coordinated. That was coordinated by several other groups. And so, although there'll be an opportunity to visit our schools.
Okay.
And of course, you know, we can all visit any school individually if your schedule allows.
Yeah.
We don't need to, only go as a group. We would just thought that would be kind of helping us prioritize it, and then do it, as just together. And so, the schools all have indicated that they, welcome visitors at any point. So if you're in the area of any school, definitely encourage you to make arrangements to stop by if you can. So, all right, so we'll do a survey for the fall, and we'll try to make it happen then. Thank you for that. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our new business. We have item A is an action item to consider approval for proposal for new school application evaluators. Dr. Karmacharia, is there anything you want to say about this?
Yeah, actually, yes. I think this item A is a proposal from Jordan. Can you click on that so they can see? Thank you. I want to scroll and it won't let me scroll because Jordan is at mission control. So I can't do that. But this is a proposal from folks that most of you will know. It's actually Dr. I'm waiting for it to come up. Dr. Benita Coleman. This is her group, the Advanced Leadership Group. And she, for those of you that don't know her, she is retired superintendent, probably one of the most highly respected superintendents across the state of Mississippi, if not the. She's just been around public education for a long time. She has great experience. And in particular, she was a lieutenant governor appointment, I believe it was lieutenant governor at the time, appointment to the Charter School Authorizer Board. So not only has she served as a Charter Authorizer Board member, she's also served as a superintendent. She has great experience as a grant reviewer, not only she's done work for us since I've been at the authorizer in reviewing applications, but she also has done national level reviews of grants too. So she has great experience. Her team is outstanding. Those of you in public education know Dr. Benton, know Dr. Kim Benton. She has led the state in the interim when we didn't have a state superintendent. She comes with a wealth of experience. I mean, I just really couldn't be any more happy. I know 3 of the 4 people on this team, And they're committed to engaging a third party person as well. So bringing somebody else in that has really a lot of experience in charter school applications. So I think the team just brings a ton of value. And I'm excited to present it to you for your approval, and looking forward to really working with them. Great team, great group.
Okay, thank you for that. I will now entertain a motion for approval for this proposal for new school application evaluators.
So moved, Kimberly Remack.
Thank you. And can I get a second?
Second, Jennifer Whittier.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right, now we'll move on to action item B, to consider approval for the proposal to provide technical assistance for schools in pre-opening. Is there anything to say about that?
Yeah, this is a proposal from a colleague of mine, actually, who I met in the NACSA Leaders Program. She worked with the Colorado Charter School Institute for years. Her background is special education, but she has also done a lot of work in providing pre-opening support for schools in pre-opening. So I know the executive director, Terry. She was a leader, coach leader in the program as well. And so no, she comes highly recommended. She has great experience, and she'd be able to provide our 2 schools that are in pre-opening with continued support, similar to what Mary did before when we had Professional Polish. So those of you that were here will remember Mary and her work. But I would recommend and ask the board to consider approving Claire's proposal here for providing that technical assistance to the schools in pre-opening.
Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, I will entertain a motion for approval, the proposal to provide technical assistance to schools in pre-opening.
So
Okay.
moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Finally, we have an information item about the charter celebration on March 23rd.
I know all of you have received invitations, individualized invitations, and invitations from me as well. Just wanted to flag that date again for you, and hopefully you will be able to attend. It sounds like it's going to be a great day. I know there will be a lot of supporters, financial supporters, and just general supporters, advocacy groups who support the work, and I think it's going to be a great day. It'll be at Revive. And you will have opportunity to tour schools prior to, and then you got an invitation to lunch. I think a location to be determined, but you did receive a special invitation to lunch. So for those of you that your schedule will allow, I hope that you'll be able to join us.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. I don't believe we have executive session. And so I'll announce our next meeting. Did you want to say something?
I do have one other thing. I just, if I might, it's out of order here a little bit, but I thought if it's okay with the board's permission, I'd like Amy to just give a quick update on what her plans are for the end of the month with governing boards. She's going to begin doing her training. As you recall, whenever Amy came on board, one of her areas is going to be supporting the work of our governing boards, so, and their leadership in terms of governance.
Sure. Yeah, we are trying to do a little more to support the governing boards of the schools. And we have set up a meeting, or I guess a training is a better word, with Tom Hood from the Ethics Commission. He is going to give us, or give the boards and us by extension, because we'll be there, training about open meetings, ethics laws, and public records. So we thought that would be a good way to start, kind of get some training out there for them. And I'm blanking on what the day is for that.
29th, I think.
I think you're right, March 29th. at 10 a.m. So if anybody here is interested in it, we can forward you the Zoom information for that. But it's training for our governing boards.
Thank you, Amy. This is actually kind of piggybacks on what we did with the back to school training. So we had Tom come and talk with our school leaders about open meetings and those things that Amy has alluded to. But this is just really a piggyback on that to make sure governing boards, who are ultimately responsible, and our contract is with the governing boards, to make sure that they understand their obligations with respect to open meetings and all of the things that Amy talked about. So excited to add this to our bucket of work that we do to support the schools.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. All right, I'll announce the next meeting is that the next regularly scheduled meeting will be on April 10th, 2023 at 1 p.m. at 239 North Lamar Street, Suite 204. I'm sorry, 207, Jackson, Mississippi, 39201. I was thinking, I hope we'll be ready to move back by then.
Oh, no, my fingers are crossed.
Yeah. And now we'll move on to the adjournment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second for Whittier.
Okay. And any discussion? Nope. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
y'all. Thanks.
And thanks everybody for the work on the research on these procedures. That took a lot of time and we appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, Jennifer. Y'all have a good afternoon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.